Hello and welcome. Day 4 of our boot camp, and today we are working with texture. My favorite of themes that we have in the Hooked on Crochet Club. Because there is so much that we can do with texture, and it can be so simple as well, just to create without getting fancy. We can create so many different looks just by changing up all those basic stitches that we learned on Monday. We can change them up and create some texture. So I've got some washcloths here with me because I create the washcloths. So I'm on to series 4 now of them. So I create one every month, and they're provided to the Hooked on Crochet Club members, but they're also, these ones are available in my store as well. But the reason I do these is because they are the perfect learning opportunity for practicing stitches, but you're also making something practical and useful. And it doesn't matter what it looks like because, well, you're just going to use it and wreck it anyway with doing dishes or washing things, whatever. So hello if you've joined me. In case you've forgotten, I am Siona, your crochet mentor, or maybe it's your first time joining me on one of these lives or on a replay. But here we are with day 4 of the boot camp. So today with texture, we've got a few stitches that I'm going to teach you after I've shown you what you can do with some of this texture. So the stitches I'll give a lesson in are popcorn, bobble, and griddle stitch. Now, griddle stitch is more a pattern design, is what I consider a pattern design. Bobble and popcorn are special stitches, and I'll start with the griddle just because it'll give me an easier base there to work on, whereas popcorn and bobble I can stick anywhere. So this one that you see in front of you is a puff stitch, which is also texture. So I'm just going to show you some of these. They're just randomly picked out of the basket that I have filled with them. So this one, you can see, the reason I love texture is you can do it with a single color and create a design within a pattern without having to change colors to make it all look pretty. It's all just there in itself. So I'm just going to go through these and pull them away, find somewhere to put them. So this one's a bobble. So you can see this one, if I bring back the puff doesn't really have a front and a back. So this one is one that will show up on both sides. So that's one bonus for that one, if you're depending on what you're working. So this is actually the back, which I know because of the border more than the stitch. So this is the back for the border. If you wanted to truly make it two-sided, then I've worked the border in the round. You could still work it in the round, but you would turn it and then you wouldn't have an obvious back and front. So this one is bobble. Lots of thick, deep texture, and you can see it's different on the back to on the front. So you definitely have actually this is the back. Bobbles work out towards the back, but you can then make it be the front. Unless you push them out, of course. You can push them the other way, so you could do that. You could alternate, but they'll tend to go back to where they were. Excuse me. This one is a mixture of front and back post. Another favorite way to create some texture. This one's just got it on the border, but this is your popcorn. This is the only one I could find with popcorn in it. At the moment I've given things away. So there's your popcorn stitch on the edge. Now these ones are combination stitches as well. I can't remember what they all are. It's been a while since I've touched them. This one's my most recent. So this one is just by working in the front and back loop only of a stitch. So normally when you insert your stitch, you're going to insert it into both, like under the V, so you're going into both loops. If you're working in the front loop, then you're just going into that front V. If you're working in the back loop, you're just going into that back V. Okay, and by alternating it, we've created that beautiful texture there. This one is more of a cluster stitch, I believe. So you get various varieties of clusters. depending on the combination of how you're going to create them. You can create them as mixed stitches, you can put chains in them. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can create cluster. This one's got a puff in it as well. This one's a clubhouse one. It was a square designed, and it's made into a bigger blanket. So again, combination of stitches in there. And then this one, I believe, is a cluster or like a bobble with a single crochet from, oh no, this was alternating treble and single crochet. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get a tissue. Okay, so there you can see all the amazing texture and different variety and how simple it is to create some variation without getting too complicated. All right, so the griddle stitch. So I'm going to start with a chain. Now when you're making the griddle, I didn't have an example there because I think my mother took that washcloth, maybe my sister. All right, so with a griddle stitch, if you're starting from the chain, you want to make sure that there is an uneven number. If you, now I'm not counting at all. If you're adding it to an existing pattern, then you'll need an even number to make it work. Otherwise, you're just going to have to adjust. All right, so I'm just going to do a small uneven chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll just keep it very short for now. And you're going to start in the second chain from the hook. So you're ignoring the first one, and we're going to start with a single crochet in the first chain. And then we're going to do a double crochet in the second chain, and we're just going to alternate that all the way along. So if you haven't learnt these stitches yet, then they're just your basic ones, and you just need to go back to day 1 to practice those ones. So we're just going to alternate 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet. And what happens is, because you're doing a taller stitch next to a shorter stitch, the taller stitch sort of crouches down, you could consider it. And this is where you're going to want to understand the architecture of your stitch, or the anatomy of your stitches, a lot better, so you can actually see them. So I'll show you as well. So we alternate single crochet and double crochet all the way along that chain. Splitting the yarn myself. This yarn's a little bit worn out because it's the one I've used all week that I keep unraveling and starting again. So I apologize for that. Oh, no, that should be. So you'll know if you've done something wrong like I had then, because you will always start with a single crochet and you'll always finish with a double crochet. So I had just the last stitch there and I was working the wrong one. So that's how I figured that one out. Okay. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn. So you can see you've already got, so they're all coming down to the same height, and you can see you've already got a little bit of texture there. Apologies, I just went on mute then to blow my nose. Okay, so now what you're going to do, so if you can see the stitches, you've got, so we're going to start with a single crochet, but you're always going to be working the single crochet into the double crochet and the double crochet into the single crochet. So that's where you're going to need to try and recognize the stitches. So if I could bring it a little closer. So your squish down one is your double crochet, so you're going to want to make the single crochet in that, and your single crochet is the one that just has this little tiny V in the middle. But if you keep up with where your stitches are, then you don't need to worry too much. So we finish with a double crochet, so we're then going to make a single crochet. And then so we got the little tiny, so you're looking for your V of the top if you need to. So we've got double crochet into the single crochet, and then that taller stitch there, we're just going to do a single crochet into that one, and then we've got, there's a single crochet, so we're going to do a double into that one, and then we do a single into that one, So we just alternate the opposite way around. So we should finish with a double crochet on the end. So the squish down, the crouch down stitch. It's probably easier to see the double crochet that's crouched down than it is to see the single. Okay, now remember the double crochet, so it's going into that single crochet in the end. You can see it's hidden away. So just make sure that you always finish with the double crochet and you will end up with the right stitch. So you can see we're starting to get, this is one of my favorite ways to create texture, by the way, because it's just so simple and it ends up looking very, very pretty once you get a whole blanket. So again, chain one, and then you're just going to start the way you did it again. So you got the double crochet on the end, so we're just going to go with a single crochet, double crochet, and that's all there is to creating that one. So I'll get to the end of the row. And as long as you get, like, remember to just alternate each one, it's an easy one. So if all you know is your basic stitches, then you can still create some beautiful texture in a blanket or whatever that. So single crochet, and then that sneaky hiding away one is your double crochet. Okay, so there you go. You can see we've got, so if where's my swatch? So that's compared to, I know they're smaller, but this, I think, yeah, that's your single crochet. So there you've got your little swatch. So you can see the difference between the two. We've got some pretty texture coming up on that one just by changing up the stitches. All right, so now we'll make a popcorn. So if I start, so your popcorn and your bobbles are with your double crochets. So I'm going to start with just a chain two to get myself some height. So your popcorn, probably the easier, though not everyone likes it. So I'll just do a double crochet there just to move it along. So in this one, what you're going to do is into that one stitch, you're going to put 4 or 5 double crochets. It doesn't really matter. I tend to do 4 just because it uses less yarn and it still gives you a popcorn. So you're going to do 4 into the one stitch. So if you can see that, we've got 4 double crochets into that stitch. So again, if you haven't practiced, you're not comfortable with your double crochets yet from day one, then make sure you practice those. What you're then going to do is you're going to pull your hook out. So I tend to pull that loop up a little bit so that in case you start getting crazy with your yarn hand and pull it out, you've still got a bit of buffer there. You're going to insert your hook from the front to the back into that first double crochet. You're then going to insert your hook into that loop that you left free and pull it just so it's back snug on the hook. You're then going to yarn over, and essentially you're just doing a slip stitch through those 2 loops. Okay, so what that does is that pinches them together and you've got your popcorn. I'm just going to do a chain to give me a little bit more space, and I'm going to skip a stitch. So if I jump, so I'm skipping one, I'm doing it into the next one. When you're playing around, you can just do whatever you like. So again, I'm going to do 4 double crochets into one stitch. I've never done 3. Oh, okay. So once you've got the 4 stitches, you're going to just pull that loop up and pull your hook out, insert it into that first popcorn. Again, you're going from the front to the back. You're then going to go, you're essentially going to the back to the front then to grab that second loop. You're going to yarn over and just slip stitch to pinch that together. Okay, so you can see you've got 2 little popcorns there on the front, and then when you turn it over, it looks sort of a little bit flat concave on the back. All right, so that's your popcorn. So now your bobble is going to be 5 double crochets together. Now you can have them with more, you can have them with less. depending on the design, but we're going to go with 5. But there is a general rule that you can follow as well, which I'll explain. So what we're going to do is we're going to partially make 5 double crochets, and then we're going to finish off with a yarn over as 1. No, we didn't really do that with the popcorn. All right, so you're going to insert your hook. Okay, apologies. You're going to yarn over first. I've already done that bit. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. So with your double crochet, so you should know that much. You double crochet, then you would yarn over and pull through 2. Now to finish the stitch, you would yarn over and pull through those ones, but we're not going to do that. So you can see with 1 stitch, I've got 2 loops on my hook. So I'm going to partially make another 4. So this time, all you're going to do with each stitch is yarn over and pull through the first 2. And each time you're going to add an extra loop onto your hook. Okay, so I'm on number 3 and I've got 4 loops. So you'll always have 1 more loop on your hook than you do stitches made or partial stitches made. So there's 5, and then do it again. And now we should have 6. So then what we're going to do is yarn over and we're going to pull through all through 6. And we've got our bobble, and you'll see that that one then pops out more to the back, which is a lot more obvious when you've got the popcorns next to it. But if I turn that over, that's where you've got your stitch coming out. Okay, so I'll just do a chain to get myself some more space. So I'll just do another one. So if you're doing 6 double crochets together, then you will end up with 7 loops on your hook. All right, so I'm just going to partially make those stitches. So again, if you're not familiar with the double crochet, then that's another one to go back to day 1 and get comfortable with that, because you are going to want to be comfortable making that stitch. So you're just going to keep partially making it. Now it can get a little bit tricky because you're keeping so many loops on your hook, and do it as slowly as you need to. So what have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can count the posts as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll always have 1 more. So then yarn over, and again when you yarn over and pull through, just make sure the face of that hook turns down, and then just pull it all the way through. Okay, and you can see that it pinches out the back. All right, so that's really all we've got for the texture stitches today. Now I will chuck in, since we'll do the puff as well, since I've still got a little bit of space there. So your puff can be as many yarn overs as you like. So all you're doing is yarning over and pulling up a loop repeatedly in one spot. So yarn over first, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. Just do that however many times you want, generally 4. And there'll always be a weird amount of number. You're always adding 2 for every one. You also have 1 on there to start with, and then you're always adding 2. So what have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll do that. We'll do 1 more. No, we won't. Yes, we will. So we'll do 1 more yarn over. You can see it gets a little squishy. So this one just gets a little trickier with pulling the loop through. So yarn over, and then you're going to make sure your hook is facing down, and then just pull that through all of them. And that's your puff, which you can see is texture on both sides. So that's all of them. What is the difference between puff and popcorn? So popcorn, you're making 4 double crochets first, and then you're going to pull the hook out. Now I do think there is a possibility that one of the languages, like the UK, may say that the puff is the popcorn, or the US. I don't know. I've always just learnt this popcorn is 4 or 5 double crochets made and then pinched together at the top, whereas your puff, you're just yarning over and pulling up loops and then yarning over through them all. So your puff ends up being on both sides. And you can see your popcorn here, which is the first one, is only texture out the front. So you might find that there is some cross terminology somewhere, because I do have some books that I don't know if they've described some of the popcorns as a puff stitch. So it might just be the terminology they're just using. But popcorn is this one, but I have seen the popcorn referred to as a puff sometimes, but I do believe it might be an error, I don't know. But your puff, so I'll just do another puff up here in this chain space. So your puff, you're just yarning over and pulling up loops. You're not actually creating any stitch, you're just creating a whole bunch of loops on your hook, and then you yarn over and pull through. So that's your puff. And then your popcorn, if I make it in that one, you're making the double crochets into the stitch or space. So you're actually forming stitches, and you'll see them side by side. And then you pull the hook out. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to get myself more yarn without ripping it. You're then inserting your hook into that first double crochet and into the last one, the loop from the last one, and yarning over and pulling through. So you can see that's a popcorn and a puff next to each other. So this is the puff and this is the popcorn. So your popcorn's popping out on the front, so you can see this is the back. So those ones are popping out the other side. And then your puff is the puff on both sides. Okay? Hopefully that explains it for you, Esther. Yeah. So that's them. And then your bobble. Now bobbles you can do a multitude of ways as well. So that one we've just made with 5 double crochet together. You're most welcome. All right, so that's really all I've got to show you today. So just practice those. And if you do want some practice things, then I do have all the washcloths that you can purchase as well. But you don't need to, you can just keep playing. So when you're doing the popcorn, there is a way that you can make it turn out the other way. I'll just add that as well. So if I do the 4 double crochets together, because generally for popcorn you would have to do it on alternating rows, but I do have some patterns that I've done. So if you wanted to pop out the other way, then instead of inserting your hook from the front to the back for the first one, insert your hook from the back to the front and then grab the loop for the last one. And then when you yarn over and pinch them, you can see it's then popped out the other side. So if yours is popping out the wrong way, just check which way you're inserting your hook to create that popcorn. So you can see that one's a front-facing popcorn, and this one's a back-facing popcorn, just because of where I've inserted my hook. So you can see how easy it is as well, just to change something up by what you do with this little magic wand, which is your hook. Okay, so if I do the normal way, so that it pops out the front. So I've done 4 double crochets. Oh, yarn does not want to roll today. Insert from the front to the back, grab that loop, and there you go. You can see it's coming out the front again. All right, so that's really all there is to share with the texture today. I hope that is somewhat helpful to you. But go away and practice and see how you go. So the handout does have, so if I just show you the handout. So you've got the video guide there now, but your handout does have the written instructions, and then it's got the picture guide as well for each one, so you can play around with that one. And there's your bobble. And the griddle doesn't have the visual guide because it's more a pattern design than a stitch, because you're just mixing up your, so you can see that in bigger, you're mixing up your basic stitches. All right, so enjoy those, and if you do make some swatches, I'd love to see how you go. But yeah, all right, I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll make some things. So I'll explain how to make a beanie. I won't make it with you, so we don't have all day together. But I will make this a square with you as well. All right, so we will be back tomorrow. Okay, bye.